I'm Jim Collison. We are live from Infotec 2015. We're in the third year of recording session keynotes and session leaders. I'm here with Shawn Bolan. And Shawn, great to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be here again.
Second year in a row, which makes it easier to do these kinds of things. Let's get the essentials out of the way.
Okay.
Who you are, where you're from, what you do, those kinds of things.
I am Shawn Bolan. I am with New Horizons here in Omaha, Nebraska. New Horizons is a global provider of IT training for all the major vendors, Microsoft, Cisco, VMware, CompTIA, etc. I'm a technical trainer there. I've been with New Horizons about 8 years, been doing technical training since the late 90s. I quit counting after about 15 years because I sounded old. I didn't want to sound old.
I know.
I'm a systems guy, work on the system side of the house, Windows Server, Windows Client, pretty much all things virtualization, VMware, Microsoft, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's been a big year for VM, especially VMware.
Yep, absolutely.
They've gone through a lot of changes. What have you seen from the training side? What are you seeing? In fact, I'm interviewing on Home Gadget Geeks, my tech show.
Okay.
I'm interviewing a guy who's big into that VM space. It always seems like maybe I get these two events scheduled at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we talked a lot about virtualization last time. What's going on with VMware right now?
The big thing with VMware is a couple of new major revisions, major releases. Last June, they did a release of Horizon View 6.0, which is their desktop platform and application platform. And then literally just about a month ago is their flagship product, which is vSphere, went to the 6.0 release, which not only does that bring a lot of kind of long anticipated features, you know, some of the cool tech things they can do with it, but it's a huge leap for VMware into kind of an integrated cloud platform. The whole idea of any device, anywhere, we can get you the content, whether it's an application, a desktop, or whatever you need. And VMware has also really reached out and embraced the open source movement. OpenStack being the cloud management platform, full integration with OpenStack and vSphere 6. So, you know, it kind of sounds cliche to say that the sky is the limit, the cloud is the limit, but that's the way things are going.
Right.
You know, absolutely.
So. Now, of course, their competitor in this space is Azure and Hyper-V.
It is.
For Microsoft, there's been some stuff. It's been a little slower on the Microsoft side.
It's been,
they've been concentrating on Windows 10.
They've been concentrating on Windows 10, which is a needed update.
Yeah.
And one of the things I see in the cloud platforms, and you know, my presentation tomorrow is Virtualize Everything, which we're going to talk all things virtualization. But you start to see these providers like Microsoft with Azure, which is a really, really cool platform. They've got some things that no one else is doing with some direct application hosting and things like that, where you see other players, whether it's Amazon Web Services or VMware, is going to focus on the infrastructure. Hey, we'll give you virtual machines in the cloud. Microsoft is saying, you know, we can virtualize your database right there. So seeing some really interesting things, and we're in the infancy of this development.
Yeah.
No one's setting the standard yet, which is cool. You see everybody coming out the next week with a new way to do things.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, and prices dropping just like a rock.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean, it's been crazy to see that on Azure.
And we're a Microsoft partner, but we're also a customer. We're an Office 365 customer. And if you just look at that platform where you take Exchange, Link, and SharePoint, hosted in the cloud, if I'm a small to medium-sized business, it is so hard to beat that particular product at that particular price point. It's amazing to give my users that functionality for a really small dollar investment every month is insane.
Yeah. It's a completely different world. We now I can spin up a Windows instance in the cloud if I feel like it on Azure. Pretty easy to do.
And even Linux instances in Azure now as well.
Oracle instances. I mean, there is an enormous amount of opportunities on Azure. Cost is still a little cost prohibitive to run those kind. I mean, like you would not run a full-time Windows instance on Azure. Still pretty cost prohibitive.
Exactly. It is cost prohibitive. And I think what's happening is you're seeing some of the larger companies, the larger industries start to take a really hard look at, okay, it's going to cost me this amount to do it in the cloud, but you know, what's my recurring cost with the hardware? And that's really what's kind of changing the balance with cloud computing is it becomes an operational expense versus a capital expenditure. And one of the cool things is just the ability to expand on demand. You know, we need to spin up this capability, and it's now. It's not ordering the servers and getting them in 3 months. It's now. And again, we're seeing the infancy of this technology, the ability to be portable, to move technology from on-premise to the cloud as needed on demand. Again, it's in its infancy, but that's amazing. To be able to do that.
And you throw resources at it and do those things. And You know, it really changes the equation when we talk about innovation, because you might have a small startup who only needs a couple servers,
Sure.
but then they, you know, then somebody picks up their, you know, Ashton Kutcher,
right,
in Twitter's case, or whatever, picks up, they have a viral moment and it goes crazy, or they offer a great deal or something happens, right? They get retweeted by Robert Scoble. And then it just goes nuts, and they can spin those up pretty quick. I've actually heard, I was interviewing one small company, and they said they had a moment like that, and they actually went to Amazon and Microsoft and another one, I think Rackspace, because they wanted to they wanted to spin them up in 3 different places, right?
Sure,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah. So in your session, as you're talking about virtualization everywhere, certainly we've already talked about servers.
Right.
Desktops are fairly new. Fairly new, not brand spanking new, but the idea of being able to virtualize Windows, a Windows desktop. What else, when you think about virtualization, what else is out there that we can virtualize to?
Two of the areas that are really becoming hot, one of them is network virtualization. And since we've been doing virtual machines, we've been virtualizing networks. I mean, I connect a virtual machine to a virtual switch. But what the virtualization vendors are seeing now is we can take things that have been done with traditional networking equipment at the physical layer on a switch, on a router, on a firewall, and we can bring that technology into the hypervisor. We can do it right in line in the hypervisor. And one of the cool things is I can now take a data packet and keep it at the switch level, going from, you know, one machine to another, even if it's on a different subnet, where before that packet had to traverse out to the switch, out to the router, through the firewall, and then back in again.
Right.
We can now keep that traffic at layer 2 now, which increases the efficiencies, just huge, 10-fold, 20-fold increase in efficiency. So the vendors realizing that we can take that networking stack, bring it into the virtualization. And then one of the other cool things is storage virtualization. It's almost kind of an oxymoron. You think when we virtualize something, the hardware goes away. No, the hardware doesn't go away. We just break the bonds of the dependence. And so with storage virtualization now, we can do in software what we used to have to do in hardware. In other words, I can start taking and throwing storage at my solution on the back end. And from a software perspective, my virtualization systems just see that as a hunk of storage. It could be Fiber Channel over here, it could be iSCSI over here, it could be NFS over here, but I'm using software to say, you know what, it's just a hunk of storage out there. So it's just making it so much easier now for a company to go out and expand and create those new opportunities and things like that. It's just a continued evolution of technology.
Do you think it's making it, I mean, I think it's making it easier for the average guy to kind of get into virtualization?
Oh, absolutely. And like you mentioned with the Azure platform, you know, a really great example, you can literally have a Windows server spun up in minutes.
In minutes,
which is just
Windows Server 2012 R2.
Standard build, click and go.
So
it's making that entry point a whole heck of a lot easier, which for the small business, the mom and pop shop, or the startup, just makes their job so much easier to get that up and running. But you're not limiting yourself. You're not painting yourself in a corner. And one of the other things I'm seeing from the vendors out there, whether it's a VMware or a Microsoft, they're all now seeing that they have to embrace the entire industry. They cannot paint themselves into a vendor-specific corner. Who would have thought that Microsoft would be embracing the Linux movement? You can log in Azure right now and spin up a Linux machine right now. I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Or an Oracle machine to say, I mean, they've got Oracle VMs that you can spin up there.
You look at VMware in their vSphere 6 release, not only is saying we support OpenStack, but it's literally integrated into the product. You want to use the VMware hypervisor, but manage your cloud environment with OpenStack? Great, here you go. Here's the plugin. It's just there and it just works. And so these vendors are recognizing that it's a huge world and they have to embrace the entire world. It can't be blinders on my platform only. You just can't do that.
Can I do, on VMware, can I do the same Windows desktop virtualization that I can get on Azure today? Is that available to me?
Absolutely. And each vendor is going to approach it a little bit differently. VMware is going to tell you that they've got the best of breed virtualization. They are the 800-pound gorilla of virtualization. And so they're going to come to you with that. And one of the things that VMware has stepped up to the plate with recently is the ability to stream applications. That used to be Citrix's ballgame. They own the application market. Well, now VMware is saying, I can give you the desktop and I give you the application. Now, what's cool is that's going to push Citrix.
Yeah.
And so everybody's pushing everybody else.
Right.
As I tell my students in my classes every week when they say, hey, what's the right answer to this? Well, it depends. What's the business case?
Right.
What are you looking to do?
Right. And I even find sometimes there isn't a right answer. There might be several.
There might be several.
And it's like, how do you want to do it? What are who are your resources going to be?
Absolutely.
Right. Who do you have already trained in these kinds of technologies?
Absolutely. And you see a lot of the partner vendors, coming to the table now and literally developing solutions specifically for the cloud. If I want to join forces with Salesforce.com, you know what? They've got their applications cloud ready to go. I mean, they can have me spun up on Salesforce.com in minutes. I don't need to invest in that infrastructure anymore.
Right. Get us up and running. Shawn, what do you see in the area of mobile when we think about virtualization for mobile? What do you see in there that's different?
The big thing now is just the idea that the device should not matter. We have to be platform agnostic. There's a couple of universities out there who've done some pilots with both VMware and Microsoft where their philosophy is, okay, student, bring any device. Walk in the door with any device you want, and we will get you connected to the resources you want. Literally in our backyard right here, Iowa Western Community College, right across the river, know their instructors well. They're embracing virtualization so that they can get their students the virtualization platform, the applications, the products they need. If you're on an iPad, great. If you're on a Surface tablet, great. If you're on a PC, great. It doesn't matter. So just the fact that connectivity is a given nowadays, and bring a device.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's great.
So, which is really, really cool.
No, it is really cool. This has been a theme throughout the day. I was born too early. I wish I was 20 years younger because I think this is the really cool. I mean, we are really getting into the gravy.
Yeah,
of
it
really
is.
Cool stuff.
When I'm teaching my virtualization classes, you and I are old enough to remember. If I would have talked to you back in 1997 and said, "You see that machine right there? I'm going to take that machine off of that hardware, send it across the network, have it land on another piece of hardware, and it's never going to turn off the whole time." You would have looked at me and said, "Sorry, Star Trek boy, that just doesn't work." And today, we do that with the snap vMotion. I can move VMs around from one data center to another, and they never turn off the whole time. I mean, that's just mind-boggling.
Right.
And that's a relatively short period of time.
Very little user, they don't even know
in
a lot of cases.
Nope, absolutely not.
Pretty cool. Let's transition a little bit. Let's talk about training since we got you here, right?
Yes.
I never miss this opportunity to talk about, and I'm more interested in what are you guys doing? I mean, the world is changing, I think, even from a training standpoint, right?
So much.
We at Gallup, we have training courses around strengths and leadership and management and those kinds of things. But how's the world changing for you guys when we think about training?
For us, it's been reacting to the needs of the student in that we can't rely on the student to come into our brick and mortar building anymore. And so we've had to be really proactive in adopting the different platforms so that student can take the class at our location. They can take that class from home. They can take that class from work. We want them to be able to digest that content any way that they need to. The other thing that's done is that's allowed us to open up our portfolio of classes. For instance, New Horizons, we literally have hundreds of centers around the country. So we can put on our course list 1,000 courses a week, where before at New Horizons of Omaha, I could run 3 classes. And so that same philosophy of bring any device, we can say, what content do you need? We have it available immediately. And obviously New Horizons, we want to be the leader in that, but all the training companies have had to do that. I can't tell you, you got to wait 6 weeks for that class, Jim. Sorry. You're gone. So we have to be reactive in that. And so adopting those, online platforms, the mobile platforms, and things like that, and making it immediately available.
Do you guys have any metrics around success rates on those? Because I think there's a lot of failure when we take people out of a dedicated classroom. This is what we're struggling with at Gallup right now as we think about how do we take, management training to the desktop, and many of the ways we've delivered in the past, like a video course or one of those, have not worked. Any insights into that?
Our biggest success, it's kind of a hard thing to measure. I mean, you're with a measurement company, but that's a very hard thing to measure. It is really hard to measure. We see our highest success rate, if we exclude the traditional instructor-led student in front of me in the classroom, that's the best. But if we get away from that, the best success we see for a student is taking a live instructor-led course. So they're working with a trainer live, but to get that student in some kind of an environment where they can be dedicated to the class. When we expect a student to sit at their desk at work and take that training, the same place that they're getting all those calls, it just falls apart very quickly.
Yes.
Now, whether that means the student takes it at home or they come into a training center and do it that way or whatever, we find that student needs to get into an area they can focus.
Yeah.
Because without that, the distractions are just too much.
Shoot, most of the time at work, I leave my office so I can get some work done.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
The office is a huge distraction.
The other thing that we've done, and again, it's just taking advantage of technology, is to know that, 5-day course, most of my courses are 5 days. That student is only going to remember, 15% of what they hear the first time, and those statistics are very real. So we're adopting our platform so that we're going to make that content recorded. And so the student's going to have access to that for 6 months following, because you're not going to remember it all the first time. And you need that reinforcement. Making the labs available after the class for 6 months, things like that. You just need to give that student that constant type of reinforcement with that.
Yeah. We've even, have considered breaking down those into very small 5-minute sections, categorizing them. We haven't done it yet, but we're thinking about that. How do we get... Because this generation goes to YouTube and they get a 7-minute video.
Yep, exactly.
Done.
Exactly.
It takes longer than 7 minutes. They're done. They're gone.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And when you look at a traditional training center like ours, we're into the Monday through Friday 5-day type of class format, and that's where we've been at. The industry is changing. The industry is evolving. If you look at some stuff that like Microsoft Learning is doing, Microsoft Learning is developing these very specific, focused, topic-centric courses, so that it's not a 5-day course. Maybe it's an 8-hour course, but it's on a very specific topic out there. And I think that's going to be a bigger part of the industry. You're still going to have the need for the general training. You're always going to have that, but very, very focused. This industry is in some ways so much more mature, and training has to keep up with that. We have to be able to address that with that student. We can't just assume, hey, I'm going to teach A+ technology forever.
Right. Well, I think the other thing you guys compete with is open source training.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, for some reason, and I'm a part of this community, we'll get on YouTube and we'll say everything we know, and people find that helpful.
They find that helpful.
And it competes, right? How do you guys or how are you reacting to that open source?
And one of the things I think where we try to react to it is to realize that's there and it's always going to be there, and we're never going to shut you down. That's the wrong mentality. Right. We can't think like that. What we're going to say is we're going to bring an advantage with our training, in that student's going to have constant access to an instructor for a week. They're going to have the hands-on labs. They're going to have the book, etc. And so I'm going to be able to bring things to that student that the online video can't.
Right.
And so it's really more of giving the student an option. What do you need in order to get through that? For instance, if someone's going to learn the vSphere platform, it's a very big, very complex platform. You probably can't really learn that platform with 10-minute videos. You're going to need some hands-on, some tutoring, some mentoring, things like that they'll get from an instructor-led class. Now, down the road as you mature, then that kind of content, that very specific content. And I use it too. I mean, hey, when I don't know something, where am I at? I'm out online looking it up. Everybody does. Yeah. But it's more of, what do the platforms bring to you? Because they all have value.
Yeah.
I think that's what we have to look
at. It's the same thing, right? I can watch a video on how to change an engine out in a car. But am I skilled enough to do that? Probably not.
My wife won't even let me hang a towel rack.
But having someone who would come alongside me and maybe change it with me the first time, that might be a whole different value proposition. So
absolutely.
I've been asking everybody that's been coming out here kind of the last question of the day, which is not related to your topic or anything we've been talking about, but more about the future. I might have even asked this last year. What are you excited about next 3 to 5 years when you think about technology? It doesn't have to be related to anything you talked about, but anything you're super excited about when it comes to technology?
For me, the biggest thing is not so much a specific technology, but it's the empowerment of the tools that people are having put in their hands. I mean, things that people can do literally at the drop of a hat, spinning up their own blog.
Yeah.
That's not a new thing,
right?
But yet the technologies are getting better and better and better. I'm not a web programmer. Don't even play one on TV.
Yeah.
But you know what? I could go out with the tools available. I could get a multimedia blog set up and running very quickly. And so just that level of empowerment going all the way down to that end user, we're just seeing not just the technology, but the results of that technology. I think we're going to see some astounding things come from that. And I think it's going to be the generation that takes advantage of that now. Like you said, you and I are from a different generation.
I know, I'm sad.
It's a different mindset.
I try to act like them, but it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, exactly. So that type of thing for me is the most exciting, is that the power of that technology. Again, that's an infancy thing that we're seeing now.
No, it's very
cool.
It's very cool. Much like mobile it's just so young, right? I mean, it's I think when we talk about cloud infrastructure and cloud as a service, I think we're still at the early stages of that.
We really are, and that's in my talk tomorrow. We're going to talk about all these different as a service topics, and just exactly what does that mean. And it's that truly on-demand type of content. We assume that everything is going to be there. That device we all have in our pocket.
And when it's not, we're freaking out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Shawn, thanks for taking a few minutes. Always good to catch up with you.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you again next year when we do this. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Jim.